great leaders look like. A couple pieces that I want to talk to you about. One is love. Sometimes people, when they think about love, they think about the kind of marriage kind of love, like that first romance kind of love, right? And we think about that because that's sort of like spurred by great emotion. But marriages end. And so I want you to think about love in a different way. The love that you have, between a parent and a child. How many of you guys are parents? And you totally get this, right? You would do anything for that child because you have this bond. And so great, passionate leaders are the ones who have that bond. And you all know what that is. It's something that you just care about. You can't stop caring about. It could be about people. It could be about processes. It could be about the way people work together. Or it could be about a technology or an idea. So I want you to think about great, passionate leaders as the ones who really figure out what is it they love. Okay, so the next thing, for those of you who didn't catch it, there's a little technology difficulty up here. Next thing is curiosity. Curious George was curious, right? But he was sort of curious about everything. And what I'm going to suggest is that you be curious about a few things. But unleash that curiosity about those few things. Let go. Edison had 1,000 failures until he built what he built. And we could call them failures, or you could call them first attempts. So if you keep curious, you're just going to keep noodling on things. You're going to keep trying. So I want you to let that curiosity out. Intensity. Sometimes intensity can be viewed as anger or emotion. And sometimes people are told, oh, you're too emotional at work. All right, how about let's just be intense about it. Gandhi walked hundreds of miles to go and see the salt in the ocean to show a point. He was intense about that point. And he started to live it. He started to live what he believed every single day. Great leaders do that. Passionate leaders do that. And then it's a way of being in the world. So for all of us that have been told we need to leave part of ourselves at home in order to show up at work, right? We're not allowed to be that zany, that eccentric. I think it's perfectly okay to be all of who you are. You're going to need to learn how to manage it all so it makes sense in the context you are. But everything that is a part of you, every failure, every success, all your heritage of where you were born, what you know about that. I find it really interesting to actually study innovators because almost all of them came from a different culture. And what that gives them is a new perspective. That's part of who they are. And they're letting that show up in their everyday life. So these are, to me, the first four things. When I think about great leaders, these are the core elements. So I want you to think about, are you letting yourself be fully alive? Are you letting all your curiosity run hard? Are you intense about the stuff you're thinking about? And for those of you that are in school and all you raise your hand, you have to be intense, because good God. And do you actually know what it is you love? That's got to start from there. And this is no longer a choice. Tom Friedman in the book, The World is Flat, talked about the notion that information is available to everybody, right? And so if information is readily available to everyone and global markets reward those people, then do we have a choice? Do we really have a choice in our careers to kind of sit back? Because it's really the people who can then get that information and do anything with it. Everyone has it, so then what's the magic you're adding to it? Passion, ability to act, right? And the speed at which you are willing to take that new information, integrate it into what you already know and love, and act on it. That's what creates value. And so in this new world, we will not have a choice. And if you don't take an approach of being passionate, I think you're actually going to be the one left behind. Once again, the reason I'm here. So I'm going to just give you a couple examples of unleashed leaders. and show you a different couple views on them also. So Steve Jobs is my iconical leader, partially because I worked at Apple and I left right about the time that he came back. What he was doing at the time was actually cutting divisions left and right, and I thought, and I went and presented something to him, and on my second slide it said something like the word channel somewhere in my presentation, and he said channel and then bleep the channel, and I was like, ooh, this is not going to end well. But you know, Steve Jobs is a guy who actually got kicked out of his own company, fires people in the parking lot of his company, calls HR later saying I fired so-and-so, right? Really interesting guy, and yet has invented some of the great, brightest things that we use. How many of you guys are iPod users? Yeah, watch that, jeez, right? iPhone users, Air users. I bought one yesterday, couldn't resist. But Steve actually has this passion about design. He's had it since he was little. He's had a passion about business. He's had it since he was little. And he lets that out. And if you look at his career, he hasn't been successful every inch of the way, has he? I mean, imagine the day you get fired from your own company. That's not a good day. Kind of regret hiring John Scully. You kind of sit there and think, I'm an idiot, right? So that was not a good day. And today we look at him and we think he's an icon and that he's such a hero. But it's all a matter of where you look at it in the story. Margaret Thatcher, one of the greatest leaders known today. She was called the Iron Lady, and the labor unions in Britain hated her. I mean, like, hated her, right? We think about her as being a great leader. So what's so interesting is she had this personal vision that Britain could be strong. And if you actually think about the era in which she took power, they were not. They were second-class citizens. She had a personal vision and a belief in the people of Britain. You go back to her early speeches when she was essentially running for local office, she talked about that. And she won't get it all right also. She's the one who said the Berlin Wall will never fall. Right? So she wasn't perfect in her own right, but an incredibly strong leader. J.K. Rowling, one of the richest women, most powerful women in publishing today. I think she's in the top 10 of wealth in Britain, top 40 in the world, and has actually, the fact that all of us know her name, right? Think about that in terms of an author. How many of us know the author's name of a bunch of books? You might know the name of the book, but we know her name. In fact, we know her characters, right? But she wrote the book at a time of Great Depression. She was actually a single mother living on welfare, and came up with the story and the character of Harry Potter during a 4-hour train ride. First publisher didn't want to publish her. Just thought it was going to be the lamest book on earth. Passed them up. It's like Verizon when they passed up the iPhone. It's like, well, that guy probably doesn't feel too good today. We did a piece of research recently in the field that said that AT&T made $2 billion on the iPhone decision. And I'm like, I hope they threw that guy a party. So the point of sharing both the tough stories as well as the easy stories is that we look at these great iconic leaders today and we hold them up on a pedestal sometimes, right? The Steve Jobs or the Margaret Thatcher or the J.K. Rowling, or possibly the person who's sitting right next to you, because there's some great leaders in this room I see. And we hold them up and we don't always think about their story in their full context. They didn't get there in this easy fashion. They got there by falling down. And how does strength come? From getting back up.